Let's move on over to Pretoria then, where the High Court there has set, of course, a ruling which has declared some regulations governing the social relief of distress grant regulations unconstitutional. Now, the court challenge was brought by the Institute for Economic Justice and the hashtag Pay the Grants movement. To discuss this a little bit more, I'm joined by Temoho Kgosipula, who's from the hashtag Pay the Grants movement. Thank you so much for the time, Temoho. And I think it's very important that we just perhaps start off right at the beginning here and give a clear sense of what has happened. Ultimately, the court's saying that the desire then to have people only apply for the grant online was unconstitutional. Plus then speaking about income and financial sources, those, whether they come from family or not, aren't necessarily a proper form of income. Are those the primary facets of this ruling that have come forward?
Greetings to you and your listeners. Thank you for having me. You know, there's been several points that have been challenged, but those are the other ones. For instance, the regulations that they, for instance, bank verification, the one that you mentioned, online application, it is unreasonable that it is thought that people can access a smartphone and data all the time, and people are tech savvy. And linking it with other social grants, for instance, they can be applied online, but this SRD seems to be sidelined and put aside as something that is not permanent, and it's bringing up a lot of uncertainty to millions of beneficiaries.
Yeah.
And the other one that stands out for me is the amount versus the poverty line. And I think the judge realizing that is actually a milestone, and I hope that the officials can actually act on this and follow the judgment.
All right, let's start off by saying how many people or families have been disenfranchised then by the way things were done previous to this ruling.
You know, like their argument also includes budget, for instance. So they would argue that the budget allocated was not enough for certain people, or maybe if you receive a certain amount, that doesn't even reach the threshold that they set, which was 624, you can get declined. And sometimes you get declined for 2 or 3 months for that support that you get. And they are not able to distinguish between income and support. And all of their systems are automated, and they don't allow for people to supplement new evidence to appeal for their unlawfully decline.
Yeah.
So I think that is the case. And millions of people are struggling with this, to be honest.
All right. Now that it's been deemed unconstitutional, what actually happens now? Will government possibly announce another way to apply for this grant ultimately? Will government have to pay back? Can it be basically put in place retrospectively, so going backwards and ultimately paying back all those people who weren't given the correct answer when it comes to the law?
Yes, great question, because that is where a lot of eyes are looking. What is going to be done now? What is the next step? And I think it is up to the SASSA, DSD, and also Treasury itself to really consider these points that the judge has ruled in order to make the application much more smooth, cut down on the strenuous regulations, and let this be also a realization for like a basic income grant. And people and the officials should not attach these terms like workers seekers grant and all that stuff. People should have support that is unconditional and that has no strenuous regulations.
Yeah, very important to kind of get that sense. Thank you so much for the time, Temoho. I think just getting to understand this and a clear path forward, particularly for those that are in need of these grants, that really do need them, as you said as well. And of course, the amount itself also being in question, very important. Temoho Kgosipula from hashtag Pay the Grants there, helping us unpack the story just a little bit more as we get more clarity then from the courts.